All right, well, welcome again, ladies. This is our fourth session. Can you believe it? A month's gone by in Corona. And I'm actually, don't know about you guys, but I've not been impacted as badly as I thought. I'm actually enjoying the not having to go out or feel pressured to go to any parties or any people's places or anything like that. I'm getting a lot done and I'm being productive. I hope you guys are too. This series is about who we must become. And we use that be as the highlight, because when you're going through things like this, as well, it's not quite like the GFC, but I know that the GFC was very challenging for me. And I know I had to learn a lot about my own personality, what pushes my button, what stresses there are around that, and how I could have dealt with them better. And I've gone on a journey to better myself and become the person that I am today. And I'm sure that journey is going to continue for life. We never get it all right, but you know, we're not meant to. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to evolve. And I think that's what we would like to share with you guys today. So this is our fourth week, and we've gone through the journey of, first of all, introducing a beautiful talent in Becca's, whose specialty is in personal development and business development. Now that applies to property business as well, of course. And she has come on board to help us gain some knowledge around our own personality profiles, and then how we can use those going forward in property. So I would like to now hand over to Becca. She's going to touch on a few of the second week, third week, and then introduce the fourth week. And then after Becca's has done about 15, 20 minutes, we're actually going to jump over onto Jane's question, and we'll open it up, Jane, because I've got a few questions for you before we go into that. So for now, let's listen to the beautiful Becca's and take it from there, Becca.
Thanks, Lorna. Hello, ladies. Lovely to see you again. I'm going to share a screen with you today, and I'm excited because this is my passion area, to add some extra layers, I suppose, to our conversations that we've been having about, you know, our behaviour profiles and you know, how we turn up in the world, and how other people turn up, and what happens when that comes together. So I specifically want to focus in on communication today, and the areas that it matters for you guys in your industry, specifically around, you know, obviously communication matters in negotiating and sales and relationship building, in identifying the teams you're going to work with and developing those teams, and then it goes on and on throughout the process. You know, managing and leading and all of those things. So there's so much that we can cover, but I wanted to introduce just two specifically concepts around communication today that are going to add some layers, because I was really excited by the questions and things that I've had about your profiles, you know, just your behaviour profiles so far as well. So yeah, note down any questions along the way, and I want to take you just on a little journey around that. So this is a concept that if you've been around NLP or Neurolinguistic Programming, that you would have come across, or you might have heard, the map is not the territory. So just ponder that for a moment. What does that mean exactly? What it talks about is that there is what is, and then there's our version of what is. Yeah, so our map of the world, as we call it, is different from, no, my map is different from Lorna's map, and yet we're both in the same environment. That makes sense. And now that applies to, you know, a physical environment, but it also applies to, you know, a negotiating environment, a relationship environment, an agreement, you know, environment. You know, a lot of you are part of syndications and groups and investments, and you know, that's the territory, and each of the people involved in that have their own map of that territory. Okay, so that's the concept. It's really important to remember that the map is not the territory. When we come across, you know, you often, you know, will come across people who go, how can they see it that way? It's because they've got their own map. Okay, so how does this come out? You know, how does this turn up? Well, it turns up in conversations where we think something makes complete sense and is an obvious, you know, way to go, yet someone's got a completely different idea of that. Now, what tends to happen, depending on our profile, is that, you know, we'll respond in a number of ways. So for the higher S's in the room, they will, you know, default to someone else's map quicker. For the high I's, they will be just desperate to convince you of their map.
Sorry, Beckers, can I just interrupt for one sec? Because there's a couple of new people on board. They may not know what the S and the I means. So just give reference to the DISC profiling that you did.
Yep. So I'm just going to let someone else in who's arrived, Bettina. So, okay, so when I'm talking about S's and C's and I's, and I'm talking about the DISC profile. So there's 4 kind of profile areas that we talk about, and we have all of those in us, but we have sort of strengths in one or more areas. And the D is the driving, decision making, the I is the influencing, engaging, the S is the supporter, stabilizer, and the C is the cautious or compliance focused person. So if you haven't done your DISC profile, I'm more than happy for you to get that link from Lorna and go ahead with that, and then you'll have all of the information that we're talking about. So what it essentially says though is, depending on our specific defaults, will depend on how we respond when our map doesn't match someone else's map. Okay, so if I'm, a higher D, a decisive, then I will be quite instructive about, no, it's, this is what we're doing. And that's going to have an impact and a consequence on how that person on the other side of that communication feels about this arrangement that we're in. So thinking about your profile and your defaults and how do you turn up, and you can just, whether you've done your profile or not, you can just think about, okay, that's, I'm sure you can relate already, going, it's so true. Sometimes I'm going, how do they see it that way? How do you turn up in that moment? What happens then? All right, because this is happening all the time. And sometimes it can just be really valuable to sit back and go, that's right, the map is not the territory. My map is not the territory. Their map is not the territory. Just because they see it differently doesn't mean that they are right or you're wrong, or you're right or they're wrong. It just is that the map can never be the territory. It's your perception, because what happens is we all have filters that we run information through. Okay, so there are so many different processes that happen for us to come up with our map, but it determines how we see the world. All right, so if you imagine that you're a coffee percolator machine and the information, the territory comes through, but depending what your coffee grounds are like, your filtering system will depend what comes out the other end. Okay, but the same thing went into all of our percolators. All right, so that's a bit about the map is not the territory. So I love it because it helps remind me that it's okay for us not to see things the same. And it also reminds me to consider, how do I respond in that situation? And it also helps me learn, so what is on their map? How is it different? Is there something that I want from their map on my map? What if I could view this territory via their map? And that's where curiosity comes in. And curiosity is a massive tool when it comes to communication and relationship building, that we'll say, Lorna, we need to write that down for another session. So curiosity is an incredibly powerful tool that can solve so many issues when it comes to really great communication and relationships and teamwork. So we'll continue with that another day as well. So this is a little bit more on that. So there is a reality. Yeah, I love that quote. We see things not as they are, but as we are. So if we go back to thinking, okay, we have our map, and our map determines how we see things. All right. So on one side, we've got, maybe you, but not you, because that's a guy, and none of us are guys in the room today. But you've got your mental map of the reality, which has got your beliefs and your values, your filtering system. And then, you might have a prospect or a team member or a potential partner or a buyer or a seller, and they've got their mental map of reality, which is attached to their beliefs and values. And then there's the common understanding, and in this scenario, it's quite small. And you'll notice, if you think about the different people you deal with, sometimes that's going to be a lot more, there's going to be a lot more crossover, and sometimes it's just going to be a tiny little bit. But that's what we're looking for, okay? So when you're in those difficult relationships, or you're frustrated, like, how can I get through to this person, or how do I connect better with this person? What you're looking for is where your maps cross over. And so then if you layer that with, okay, and I'm, you know, my behavior style is this and my communication style is this, and then identifying what is theirs, okay? So this is all about developing even deeper levels of self-awareness so that then you can apply that understanding to understanding someone else, yeah, creating awareness about who they are. Because if you've only got the blue, yeah, the blue circle there, you've only got, you've got, yep, I'm all over it. I know my beliefs, I know my values, I know my map of reality. You can be all nailed on that. But the next step is actually being able to unpack what's on the other side. Okay. All right. So there are, this relates, this is a transition to the next thing I want to talk about. There's 3 parts to each communication transaction. So there's what you say, and we'll come to the ego thing later. And then there's the response that you think that you're going to get. And then there's the response you actually receive. But one of my favorite quotes of all time is, the meaning of your communication is the response you get. So I want you to think about that one, write it down. The meaning of my communication is the response I get. So whether it's with your kids, your partners, your business associates, your prospects, the bank manager, the meaning of your communication is what the response you get. You may have intended it some other way, but the meaning of it is really, can only be categorized by what happens after that. Yeah, number 3. So there's those 3 parts. So we need to understand all 3 of those areas if we want it to be really effective communication, if we want it to work for us. So just before we move on there, so there's going back to the map is not the territory. You can see how understanding, oh, that was not the response I expected. That prompts the question, so how is their map different from mine? And I encourage you to say, oh, interesting. Tell me how you came to that. Curiosity, yeah, as opposed to, no, that's not what I meant. You see the difference? So that we're coming back to the meaning of the communication is the response you get. So using that response as feedback and going and making that the opportunity to inquire till you understand more about how that came to be. So the second thing I want to introduce you to today is one of my all-time favorite things, is something called transactional analysis. So that's the, you know, psychological term for it, I suppose, but what it talks about is communication. So it helps us understand, you know, how the psychology behind the person affects our communication. And it talks about having these 3 different kind of ego states. And we all have access to all of these, but you'll have your defaults. So just like with our profiles, and we layer this in, you'll have a default as to how you tend to behave. And of course, the people that trigger you will trigger these as well. So let's have a bit of a closer look. We've got obviously parent-like ego, so it's parent-like, and a child-like, and then there's adult-like. All right. So whether you're a parent or a child is neither here nor there. This is about an ego state. This is where we come from. So the critical parent, you know, or controlling parent, sometimes they're called, you know, they can be punishing, reprimanding. They're the person that when you're communicating is like, you know, will often say, no, that's not right. You know, this is how it is. Stop doing that. Why did you do it that way? Okay. The nurturing parent is the caring, more loving, helping. They will compensate. Oh, don't worry, it's okay. Let me take care of that for you. And I can just feel some of the S's in the room nodding, going, yeah, well, that's right, because I want to make sure everyone's okay. And then there's the child, which is the adapted child, which is guilty, afraid, anxious. So the adapted child will often be making excuses or in victim mode, you know, oh, poor me. Oh, this always happens to me. Why is everything always so hard? You know, that kind of approach. And then, you know, and so often nurturing parent will jump in there and go, oh, let me take care of that for you. And then there's free child who is, you know, curious and creative and open, loving, but they can also be distracted, and they can also, you know, be the people who just make it, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Oh, look over here, you know. So you'll have all of these people in your life, and probably in your family, and then potentially in yourself at different times. What's really interesting about this model is that when we come from any of those areas, so if I come to communicate with Lorna and I'm in adapted child, and I'm, you know, I may have done this with Lorna in the last few weeks. Poor me, how difficult is this, you know, or, you know, just, you know, afraid and anxious and not coping. And then what happens is that if I am in child, where is the other person in this conversation required to be? You know, innately, I require them to be in a parent role or parent-like state. And so either that person's going to turn up as, oh, for goodness sake, pull yourself together. You know, have you looked at this and this? You know, let's just, you know, stop wasting my time. There's somewhere better to be. Or they're going to be, oh no, you poor thing. You know, let me help with that. What can I do for you? And this is just how we work, right? And so likewise, if I'm in a, you know, free child state and nothing matters, I don't have a social what? Social distancing. No, she'll be right, mate, I'm fine. Don't know anyone like that. Then that requires the other person in that conversation to be in that parent mode of like, oh, do I need to worry about them or do I need to control them? And you can see how this happens. And likewise, if I approach a communication, a negotiation, a business meeting, and I turn up as, you know, nurturing parent, well, I'm going to get some, you know, probably some free or adaptive childs who are going to go, huh, all right, let's play. Okay, and likewise, if I turn up as critical parent, I'm going to get, you know, a response of, you know, pushback and, or woe is me. So one triggers the other, and neither, no kind of variation of those is going to get us to the, you know, the professional positive results and outcomes that we're looking for. So where we want to be, obviously, is in adult, yeah, in logic. And so the key to take out of this is self-identifying, oh my God, yeah, that's the one I kind of default to, and I can tell you mine. The second thing is having awareness of that and when it's happening and identifying it in others. And then thirdly, going, okay, so how do we move through that? Yeah, to having better communication. And that's by going to adult, which is about logic. Okay, so if you're coming up with someone who's in child and you're finding yourself in one or the other of parent, you know, the alternative is to go to logic, which is, okay, so how long has this been happening? Asking a question about numbers. Do you have any evidence to support that? How many times has this happened? You know, what are the margins on that? We're not going to make any money on this. Okay, what exactly, how have you come to that decision? So being logical, both in your tone as well as your questioning. And likewise, if you're finding that someone's coming to you in parent, you can do the same thing. So I can send through some more information that gives you, I'll send through something for Lorna to send on that gives you a bit more, some articles and stuff to read that's just really interesting about this. But it's a really powerful tool to self-identify, identify what's happening in the communications that you're having, and then realizing, okay, I can take this to adult. Because if you go to adult, and given we are dealing with actual adults a lot of the time, then that's a good way to pull those people in. So we think about those relationships that don't come that easy or that we don't feel so comfortable or confident going into. You need to identify which ego state we're coming from in those situations, because if you can move it to adult, you're going to feel so much more in control of that situation and able to, to get to the results that you're looking for.
And Becca, if I can just jump in and relate this to property. So some of the times that I can use as examples would be, for example, if I'm ringing an owner of a property that I don't know, and I could have caught them at a good time, or I could have caught them at a not so good time. So by being able to gauge that straight away, I can actually take these tools and change the whole content and context of that conversation. So say if they came to the conversation, oh, I've just got in the door, I've had my mother in the hospital and I've got the kids running around and now what am I supposed to do, da 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 da. By me changing where I might have been coming from, as in I'm coming at you to negotiate, I'm going to buy your property, this is going to be cool, I might actually, take the time to bring them into the zone where we need to be to actually have a good conversation about negotiation. So I might show some empathy, do a little bit of nurturing, do a little bit of relating. I can understand where you're at. So these tools are powerful if you can take the opportunity to just study them a little bit and then start applying them just in your own family. You know, like it might be just in a relationship with your kids, your dad, your husband, and see what's triggering you too. I think that's a big one I've been learning for probably 10 years. Now, why did that trigger me? Where was I coming from with that? And sometimes, you know, straight away you'll relate to a childhood experience. That's still coming up for me. But what I've been able to do by building a team, and this is where some of those triggers come out in some of those people around that table when I'm actually sharing that conversation, is I've got to understand, right, this is where they're coming from and it's an ego thing right now, and I need to taper that ego. So I need to know who I am and where I stand in this, in my own identity first, and then I have to calmly and quietly maybe acknowledge that conversation that they've just put on the table, but then gently move it around the table so more people have some input. We end up with a very good adult conversation going to a logical outcome.
Absolutely. And I think you make a really good point around, you know, bringing them gently as such. So obviously we don't want to go, they're an adaptive child, right? Logic. There's a pathway that we can take. And, you know, as we get more and more familiar with this, it can be quicker and quicker. And to your point too, Lorna, one of my other, you know, all-time top tips is around acknowledging people's situation. So there's no point judging it and going, they're in critical parent, or they're in nurturing parent, or they're in, you know, adaptive child. Even in your mind, just like be curious about that, just be observant of that. Okay, so they're there. Where did I come in from, and how am I affecting that? And then, you know, pathway through to that logic and that adult. So yeah, open to any, you know, questions specifically around that. But just then going back to think about those three parts to the communication transaction: what we say, so where are we coming from that ego state, and then the response we expect to receive, because that's going to depend on what we've come to it with, and then what we actually receive, which is going to give us an indication of, as important in Lorna's example, you know, you make that phone call and then you go, okay, I've got someone who's trapped here at the moment, so I might just need to go to, you know, come from nurturing parent and bring them through to that middle, as opposed to, being there immediately or going to critical parent, or just being really mindful. Awesome.
Okay. So let's move on to Jane. And Jane, please feel free to open up your communications, because, as I said before, I love Jane's passion. She will come to the Sunshine Coast meetups, the Brisbane meetups. She's been out on site to visit some of our projects. Hi, Jane. And
hi, Lorna.
Love her passion. So welcome, Jane. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
So, Jane, I first of all acknowledge, you know, that you've made the effort for the questions, and thank you. Right, because it gives us real life examples that we can now share with the team. So what I did with your questions was, there's actually 6 in there, right? So
okay, yes.
Now, and this is step 2, as Becca was saying. So what I'm going to do now is ask you questions back, so I better understand what your questions are, okay? So Jane's situation, do you want to explain, Jane, just the first part of it? Are you actually in the process of doing a joint venture?
Yes. So we've started, so there's this lady that I used to work with. So we regularly catch up. And then, so she's been interested in my property journey. So I've just been telling her about the joint ventures that I'm doing. And then at the end of all of that, she said, hey, maybe we could do something here, because she has a high income. And a lot of my equity is tied up with rental properties. So then I'm thinking, well, okay, I have the skill and knowledge, and she has the other parts of it that I need. Maybe we can work out something, but the details are, you know, we haven't worked it out in such a way where both parties are happy with the arrangement. But because of Corona, I'm thinking we need to be conservative. Because I had a conversation with you, Lorna, last week, and I just realised I was the childlike during that conversation, because I was feeling all these feelings, you know, with the Corona stuff, and I'm like, no. And I think you were trying to be the adult. the nurturing adult. But anyway, so I just thought that was like what I learned this morning from Rebecca's presentation. So okay, cool.
Did I succeed, Jane? Was I?
Yes, you did. Yes. Responsible. But yeah, coming back to this whole joint venture now, I'm thinking at this stage, I'm interested in getting her, I guess, outlook in the next 3 to 5 years, possibly, because I don't want to do the development right now. But then at the same time, like she's in a relationship, she's not married yet, but I've got to be mindful of what her plans is in the future, as well as, you know, the ideas I'm throwing out there is kind of like, okay, what would be a win-win for us? And yeah.
Okay, let's take it from there, Jane. So when you say she's going to be the borrowing partner, now to me that says she's got the serviceability and she's going to go to the bank and she's going to borrow the money.
Yes.
Does that mean that you and her are both going to be putting money in as financial equals, or what does it mean? She's putting all the money in up front? Who's putting
up front she has the means and savings to secure a site.
Yeah, okay, cool. So she is the money partner in this.
Yep.
And I know you've been the money partner in other ventures, joint ventures, so you know that side of it.
That's right, yeah.
Right. So you wanted to also think about allowing flexibility in worst case scenarios. So we'll go into that a little bit later. You've chosen to buy now, hold, and develop in the future model. So I just want to understand your motivation for that.
Well, because I'm thinking at the moment, I would like to have a buffer, and that's why my reservation of not wanting to commit elsewhere. But in a way, I'm thinking, I propose to her is that because she's paying rent at the moment, paying more than she has to, if she could secure a development site. With interest rate being so low, it's going to cost her less. And she can secure something with the potential to develop. So it's a win for her as well. It's a win for us. We could develop later and share the profit. That's what I'm thinking.
So you're going to find the project. So you're actually going to put your foot on the project, find it, and make sure it's a quality project that's stacked or will stack in the future.
That's right.
So that's your contribution right now.
Yeah.
You may spend a few months doing that, or
that's right.
We don't know, but yeah, okay, cool. And then she's going to put the money in, and that starts your joint venture. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a minimum time, like she's going to move into this house, do you have a minimum time that you won't disturb her in this house and won't start development or anything? And do you have a sunset clause? Like, could this drag out for 3 years, 10 years, 15 years?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay, so there are a couple of things you want to think of. I'm just saying these things to prompt you as well.
Okay.
So what the borrowing partner wants the ability to either keep the house or keep part of the development. Now, who and when should that decision be made?
I think later when you develop, because the thing is we don't know whether the site has the ability to keep the house or we have to demolish, you know, whether it's a lot or a house. But yeah, I guess.
And that's one of the things I want to bring up. And it's going to come out in the personalities of the person that you are thinking of doing a joint venture with, that we're going to do some checking on or help you to just make sure you're going to be the right fit.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
So, and then what I'm going to do after that is actually come back and tell you what I would do, how I would do it, right? In terms of structure. So we're going to go a little bit more into the personality. So the things that jumped out at me, the things that you need to make sure that they've got within their personality or profile is that they've got the ability for flexibility, right? Versatility and flexibility are really important in this because there's so many unknowns. There is we don't know how long we're going to be in the deal. We don't know if she's going to end up with a house or a block of land. We don't know, so they've got to be willing to go on this journey. And there's a lot of trust that comes into it too, because you've actually not put any money in the deal.
That's right.
They've got all the risk. And so what we have to also make sure of is, what is their risk profile like? If things turn to mud, how will they behave? And comes before you start development, but it also comes during development. So, for example, Don Moffat tells the story of when he did the Oasis with Kerry Packer. You might have seen this one, Jane, but in the middle of that, interest rates got to 22 or 24%, right?
Yeah.
Kerry Packer, the richest man in Australia, decided he wanted a fire sale and get out. Now, there was a lot of conflict at that time, and you watch the video when I post it because it's an awesome story about concrete shoes and helicopters going through windows. But you've got to understand the profile of the person you're getting into bed with in this journey, because if they can't handle something going skew with, like a GFC or a coronavirus, maybe there's a later impact or whatever else, then they're not going to be able to handle anything that comes from that, and that will impact you.
Yes.
And your family.
Yes.
And it will be stressful and emotional. So when you're building, we'll build the steps later, but when you're building your agreement, you have to go through all those what if scenarios, and you actually have a plan. So I'm just going to bring up more personality traits that I think is important too. So you're running the project, right?
Yep.
Can they let you do that without interfering? That's another thing you need to explore.
Okay.
So, you know, well, I'll use Don again. Kerry Packer was supposed to be only the money man. When I say only the money man, it was a lot of money. It was 20 million. So in his case, he stood his ground, and he had to stand his ground because they were halfway through the project. They'd already sold 60 of the 91, and Kerry Packer's trying to influence how he develops. And Kerry Packer's never developed in his life, right? So is this person going to trust you, have confidence in you, and back you even in the tough times? Because Don goes on to tell another story about a perfect joint venture partnership, right? And so, and that was a wonderful outcome. And, you know, they both got achieved, they both got delivered, but I'm trying to give you examples of getting into bed with someone. And Don was actually warned by people, don't get into bed with Kerry Packer. Don't do it. On the other hand, he got into, you know, an NRL champion, which we'll, you know, talk about another time, who was just a gentleman, a beautiful gentleman, and knew that Don's skills would deliver what was needed to be delivered. So they're the personality traits, some of the things that we need to consider. But at the same time, you've got to consider your personality as well. Can you stand strong in who you are and what you know? And have you got your right team around you to assist you in that? Because that is really powerful, having good people around you. And, you know, Don's one of my people I have around him because of the wisdom and strength and skills that he brings. And he's got a calmness about him. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, you know, like he brings something to the table where if he needs to step up and help me fight for something, cool. But if we need to just calm the farm, it's going to work out, then he's there for that too. And I've got other people, as you know, with Peter and Leon, you know, they're all got qualities about them. So you have to identify your strengths, but also identify your weaknesses and put those people into your team to help. And it doesn't mean they have to be a joint venture partner. They could just be someone you employ, or a coach, or someone that's talented in town planning that you really trust and they've got some brilliant ideas, but they also have the personality trait to help you walk through nice and calmly in this walk. So are there any questions that come out of that before I hand over to Becca's?
Should I get her to do a disc profile test?
Well, let's ask Becca's, hey? What would you do, Becca's?
A couple of things that stood out for me there, Jane, is, you know, to be wary of in all situations like this is the power imbalance. So we like to think that, you know, oh, she's bringing the money, I'm bringing the sweat. That doesn't always play out. So there's a perfect example of the map is not the territory, okay? So your version of the world where you know what you're going to deliver and the value that will bring, you know, and then and the value that it brings for her to have access to those funds, but then her map guaranteed is different from yours. Now, right now we might sound like we're all in agreement, but just know categorically they will be different maps of the same situation. So just be mindful of that power imbalance. And so to that point, a really great way to identify how this is all going to roll out is doing some quite intensive scenario planning. And so I know when I've had business partners in the past and we've done, full partnerships agreement, and got the scenarios we went through, all the way through to, right, what if he dies, then that would mean I'm in business with his wife. So what would happen then, and vice versa, and all of the different scenarios. And like Lorna was saying, okay, so, all right, let's say interest rates go to 24%, because who knows what will happen after we bounce back out of this. Now, how you feel in those conversations and your willingness to do that, and then the response that you get will give you huge indications, with or without a DISC profile, of who you're getting into bed with as such. So curiosity is absolutely your key, and pushing as many different scenarios as you can possibly think of onto the table, because what you're wanting to see, and Lorna would have some very specific advice around this, what you're wanting to see is someone who's considerate of those and is prepared to think about them, has some valued kind of contribution to what would happen. You want someone who might even bring up their own scenarios, and you're looking for, okay, so well how would that look then? And so she's going to get married, for example, and then this happens, and so then what would that mean? So you're looking for, there'll be signs, there'll be plenty of signals and triggers if it's something that you need to be wary about. So yeah, I think those would be my two big things. Be very mindful of the power balance, the power imbalance. Even though it sounds like it's an equal partnership, that's just your version of the world, and those maps can change. And the key to really understanding who you're working with, yeah, obviously we can profile people, but the scenario planning is an excellent way for you to be really curious and observant, and of just how that works, having those conversations. Is this person distracted? Do they keep getting up to make a cup of tea? Do they want to do it over a glass of wine? Can you get a straight answer out of them? And so this is a great way to go, God, how do you feel at the end of that conversation? Do you feel like you were on the same page? So these are all ways to help identify. And it doesn't mean that means you do or don't go into business, but it means that you need to get those signed off, so that should anything like that happen, it's written down, it's a legal agreement. That would be my thoughts.
So Jane, the steps to go through, having considered that, and there's probably more that Becca's could help you with in even the communication of that, but the steps to actually go through would be, normal situation, you'd sit down with them, but okay, let's Zoom with them, pen and paper in hand, and you're going to draw up what's called a heads of agreement. And this is just you guys. It's a fluid document at the moment, right? And you're going to take some time to consider the actual roles and responsibilities first. So you talk about those first, because that's simple. Well, it's the simpler part. What happens next is, okay, great, we've got our roles, we've got our responsibilities. We think about, I'm going to do this. Am I getting paid while I do the development, or not getting paid? Is my profit, payment in the profit, or is it on a weekly or monthly basis? All the technical things. Then go into your scenarios and play those out, because that could tweak some of the things that you've actually laid out already in the heads of agreement. So that heads of agreement might take a month to really pull together, but that's okay. It might take a week, it might take 3 months. And if they're avoiding it, there's another indicator, right? So I suggest you just, you can get them off the computer, off the internet or whatever, or make up your own, but really all it is that it's an agreement that you two are making, the two parties, and then you're playing out the what ifs. When you get to the point where you feel very comfortable with it all, it then goes to the lawyer, and the lawyer draws up the document. Now, he'll have some more what ifs for you that you didn't even think about. And that's just part of the process. But I really want to emphasize that this is so important, because if you don't get these foundations right, you'll end up in not concrete boots in the ocean like was threatened to Don, but it could be pretty ugly, and no one wants ugly. So what I suggest you do is take the time, build those foundations, make sure you're the right fit, and don't be afraid to walk away if you're not the right fit.
100% agree with that. And it's a trial run as well. That's the other way to think about it, is that, going through this heads of agreement process, or the scenario planning part, it's a trial run of what's going to be like to be in a development, because things change all the time. And what you thought was going to, we had this conversation the other day, Lorna, what you thought was going to be a 6-month deal can end up being 2 or 3 years. So plan to be with this person for, 4 times as long as you think you were going to be.
So we've got a question here from Sue, and so we'll open it up to this question. You stay there, Jane, because you might have some ideas too. So Sue's, I've got alarm bells going off just reading it, but hello ladies, I'm considering going into a partnership with some finance people who are offering seed funding and development manager. So they're actually going to put the money in, then they want to develop, manage for her project. But I'm already finding that the lady who I'm speaking with is quite bullying, demanding, and insisting on creating the project her way and not understanding the vision. I need the money and credibility, but am not prepared to be pushed around. Becca's.
Is there even a question? No. I think the question for me is around vision, Sue. So I read your question and your attachment to it. Is this a deal? Is this a money-making deal, or is it a vision deal? And who's the best person to make the decisions on that project? That would be my take on it. So is it, if you being attached to your vision, which you clearly are, we could have a conversation about detachment, but, for what purpose are you attached to your vision? Is this person potentially actually looking at it with a more critically, economically sound map of the territory, to go back to that? Or are they just a bully that's going to make your life hell, and it's going to be a deal that doesn't, have the success that you're looking for?
So Jane, what are you hearing in that from Sue?
You got Jane. I'll just unmute her.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The part from Sue.
Yes.
Vision. Yeah, I think you need to have a conversation with logic. Going back to that communication chart, and find out where that's coming from, I guess. Like inquiry, like the ego is speaking and inquiring, and maybe, yeah. And that's what I'm thinking. But I don't know, is that right?
Yeah, good girl. You get a tick for that one. That's awesome.
Okay.
So from my perspective, and look, there's no right or wrong here. We're just sharing our skills and experiences, and hoping to, give you a couple of pearls amongst what's being said here. I always look at it like this. So that's one scenario, but what else have you got available? You're not forced into a corner, are you? Like, can you look at, okay, what are the stages I need? I need some seed capital. I would like to project manage it. Is there another way of getting seed capital? Or do I build a team around me that I can't project manage because I don't have the skills, but I still want to hold the vision? Because if you look at Luana, the project I've got coming up, 109 apartments, 5 commercial, that is a big deal. I would never, ever, ever take it on my own. All I am is a visionary, and I build a team. That's it. So I keep holding that position. I chair the meetings, I hold the vision. Obviously I'm strategic in who I'm bringing on board in that team. If they're not performing, I'm the sole director. I actually have to, do the hard task of asking them to move on. But I selected that team. I chose who came on. I raised the capital. I found seed funding in a couple of the WOW women, actually, Ruth and Marissa. So is there another option for you, Sue? That's what I'd be asking before I gave up my vision. And, having found the site, having put your foot on it, if that I'm understanding it correctly, then you've got every right to hang on to that vision until you have to give it up. But you've got other options, is what I'm trying to say. So Becca's, just to wrap it up, you got anything on the back of that?
No, I think that's really good. And yeah, I've missed the point that if you've got the foot on the property, then it is your vision. And I completely agree with Lorna. And it may be, Sue, that it's just about finding what it is within you to be able to say what you need and be categorical about that. So, bullies bully those who don't stand up for themselves. So, that might be something worth having a chat to somebody about, okay, how do I be really clear about what my requirements are around this?
All right, ladies, so let's wrap it up here. We've all had our cuppers now. And I think, you know, we got a lot out of this. I think everyone should have been, you know, got a few pearls at least. So just write in the chat box if you got a pearl out of it, and, you know, give, I guess, a little bit of love back to Becca's for giving us this time today. Would appreciate you even saying it, you know, when we post these onto Facebook as well. So looks like we've got curiosity and questions as our next part, Becca's, you know, and also building the team. We didn't touch enough on that this week, but perhaps we can do that more next week, because everyone's starting to layer and get some more understanding, I think, as to where we're coming from. You know, I say property development's about people development, and that includes ourselves. So on that note, thanks very much, ladies, for all being a part of it. Thank you, Jane, for posing such a wonderful question. I hope we've given you a lot to think about, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Cheers for now.
Thank you.